morning. What's up, folks? JT here with another Chart Talk Live. Hope you're all doing well. What's up, Navy Plum? What's up, I'm gonna go with Vipul. What's up, Quam? Good to see y'all here. Welcome. Good morning. Let me get my screen sharing started. I want to make sure got all this stuff lined up right. Oh, that doesn't look great at all. Huh. I'll go back and figure that one out. All right, let me get my screen sharing started here. What's up, new trader? What's up, Ryan? Good to see y'all here. All right, let me get that started. Let's get over to the Chizat Mernon. Good morning to you too, man. Hope you're doing well. All right, so let's dig in. Let's talk about what we're seeing here in the markets in general. Then we'll take a look at some of our existing trade plans to do some recaps on those, and then we'll get to work on some new trade plans that we will develop here live together pre-market. So if you all have any questions, or if you want to start dropping your ticker requests in the chat, feel free to go ahead and do that at your convenience. As I make my way through, I just want to see one thing. What did I do to mess up that third trade plan from last Thursday? Let me find it. So much content. Come on, come on, come on. Where's it at? There we go. Apple. That's what it was. Copex, S-Bucks. Why don't I have... Oh, because I was hitting the wrong thing. That's why. Oops, and that's not what I meant to do either. This one should be Apple. There we go. That makes more sense. All right, cool. Let's dig in. Let's talk about it. So what are we seeing here on ES? I did go back last night and kind of redevelop my ES chart just because I wanted to sort of get a fresh perspective on things. It's not a bad idea to do that every now and again. What's up, Outlaw? Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, Apple and silver both have been going crazy. So we've got this nice trend, and it's really kind of more of an ascending support channel that we're riding below. If we zoom out here to both the weekly charts, I'll show you this. Doesn't look like much from here, but tracing back to these couple of candles all the way up through current, we've pretty much caught every dip off of this trend line. And if we zoom in a little bit, you'll be able to see there's a couple of liquidity sweeps below that primary trend line that come down and tap this sort of secondary one that's running at the exact same angle and pace as the upper trend line. So kind of a little bit of a support channel there, moving to the upside. Nothing's ever really even closed below this upper trend line, but if it does, you've got kind of your backup, aka stop loss level there. But so far we've been riding this and riding it strong, going all the way back to May of last year. So until this gives way, I'm not going to be too anticipatory about puts or trying to time the tops or anything like that. We do have a small area of supply on the weekly chart that we are now pushing up into. I think if we can get over this 70-38, and you call it 70-40 if you want to have a nice round number on it. If we can get over that, I think we can start a breakout and start seeing new all-time highs and go back into price discovery. So as long as we are above this trend, and I would say also at this point above 68.71, I would say expect dips to be bought, and eventually buyers and sellers, or I should say sellers, those both shorting and those taking profit, will eventually start to give up and give this more room to the upside. Of course, there is always the potential that we break down below this, but so far it's been quite strong. And I'm not seeing a whole lot that's telling me, other than obviously we're in some supply and under all-time high resistance, Not seeing a whole lot that says, the market's due for a massive pullback or anything like that, at least not until we lose that trend. Once that happens, I think we'll have plenty of room to the downside and plenty of opportunities to buy dips for the eventual recovery that we'll see. But overall, again, things trending to the upside. Remember, always the trend is your friend. Don't try to anticipate moves before they're really confirmed and you see a shift or breakdown in structure on the chart. Because if you get too far out in front of these things, even if you wind up being right, you may have waited so long for that to happen that any existing positions might have a very difficult time recovering. So just some things to think about and consider as we look at the markets in general. So let's get to some trade plan recaps. We did team. Let's get this current. There we go. Team we did last Tuesday. It did eventually give us the break down below and then pushed even lower, but most of this move happened pre-market, so this wasn't all that actionable from an option standpoint. If you were shorting shares, then it definitely was an actionable opportunity. Ultimately dumped all the way down to PT3, tried to hold that for a few days, but then eventually here we see pre-market and going into the extended hours yesterday and pre-market this morning, team continuing to break to the downside with the earnings report coming up this Thursday after hours, so keep that in mind. But so far, team's played out, all downside targets hit, although not all that actionable from an options standpoint. Moderna, we did this one on last Tuesday's live stream as well. Let me get over here so we can see all this. It has been stuck below this downtrend. Had an interesting spike there yesterday. I thought that was going to try to flip that. Ran right up into that key sell level. That coincides with our put entry there on NTS at 46.78. Rejected that pretty stiffly and continues to hold PT2 as support. If this can shake off this downtrend, I would expect to see a decent recovery on Moderna, but we need to see that break first. So, just trace that back to this high and catch those candles on the way down. And again, that looked like a pretty good opportunity for it to continue to break out, but it pumped and sold off kind of pretty quickly. So it was an interesting little flash in the pan there yesterday by Moderna, but seems like it's looking for an excuse to break this and push back to the upside off some of these levels. 200, 333 still trending to the upside, but it is under a short signal and under a bearish flag here on the hourly. So, could have some serious headwinds to deal with until it breaks back above 46.78. All right, let's get to Starbucks. Here we go. We got some people dropping in with some ticker requests. Let me also just put out a quick reminder. I know we've got new people, copy link, new people rotating into the chat. So that posted there. So yeah, we'll try to take a look at USAR or Tilray. So Starbucks did report earnings. Let's get this over to the hourly chart so we can actually see what we're talking about here. So Starbucks, we did this one Thursday after they reported earnings. We did get that nice breakdown, some sweeps above, and then some cleaner back tests there right after we did this trade plan last Thursday morning. That resistance held, especially once the 200 SMA came up and started to add some confluence of resistance. That's where you really start to get a little more confident in you finding resistance and this being a good entry for shorts or for downside opportunity. Ultimately, it did break down to PT1 last Friday, the following day after giving us the entry, and then down to PT2 yesterday where it's attempting to bounce. But now falling below the 333 and adding some additional resistance overhead there around 91.68. So Starbucks really needs to hold that 90.57 for a potential double bottom setup, or it's going to break down lower and go down to 89.10 at minimum, in my opinion. What's up, LB? Good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. Good morning, Potato Pot. What's up, Made With? What's up, Catalin, good to see y'all here. Thanks for joining. All right. So that was our Starbucks trade plan from last Thursday's live stream. We did Cop X on last Thursday's stream as well. Gave us a pre-market sweep above and then ultimately dumped to the downside out of the gates, down below, sorry, PT1 for puts. Then it gave us the back test and rejected that put entry, started to pump, and then we had the big precious metals sell off. Definitely, you know, my personal opinion, some heavy manipulation there on the pricing of silver, especially. Ultimately, that led to a gap down for COPEX, but it did give us, again, the confirmed break for the downside. So this was ultimately a good thing if you were playing for this downside plan. Gap down, found resistance there right at PT2 for puts pre-market, and then went down for PT3 plus. Ultimately caught this 333 SMA. You all know that's one of my favorites here on the hourly chart pre-market last Friday, and has been pushing up since then, trying to recover back up to 90.04, being the next resistance test, and then over that 92.77 if it can break back above. Don't forget there is a pretty decent gap to fill to the upside here. So if this one does start getting some legs to the upside, keep an eye on it because it could run pretty quickly. If it can break over, we'll give it a bit more, call it 90.50. If it breaks above 90.50, starts to get into that gap and tries to fill it, in my opinion. So keep that on watch with Cop X. And then last but not least, Apple. This one we did on last Thursday's live stream. Tried to give us the breakdown here, but had the bullish flag on NTS. Had the 200 SMA that held it from dumping any further than that. So kept sweeping below a little bit, but ultimately was finding support there at the 200 SMA in that bullish flag. That, oops, gosh dang it, that led for it to push higher there throughout the day that day. And then yesterday gave us a nice break to the upside, above the call entry. With a nice back test there shortly out of the gates, and then just ran up through price targets going through the day yesterday. Break above, back test to 262.19, and then it's off and running. That was a great setup for Apple there yesterday. Hope you got a chance to get in on it and execute it. All right, let's get to some new trade plans that we can work on this morning. USAR and Tilray. Let's take a look at those two charts. I'll kind of see which one looks better. Whoops, not USA, USAR. There we go. Do want that. I just don't need. Here, I'll do this that way. There we go. All right, USAR catching the 200 SMA. That could be interesting. Try to push for a bounce. Tilray looking pretty rough. And broke down below that uptrend. Not a great look. Getting close to a double bottom there. All right, let's do USAR. The two, I like that one a little better. All right. Just get some perspective on this. Is flipped, has flipped that. Bearish there on the 2 hour. I know it's bearish here, but we are catching that 200 SMA. All right. Now we've planned this one before. We are still running through some of those upside levels here. This call side trade plan. Whoops, there we go. Okay, so where does USAR, that's US rare earths, get interesting. Definitely some wild price action, that's for sure. Zoom out on this a little bit. $24.02. It's actually a decent little move. Okay. Let's see what this looks like. I like that as the first price target. Second target. Let's see. Could be a little bit off on this, but I think it makes a push for that 2680 level. That. I don't think we're going to have too much help on the recent price. Yeah, just kind of crazy volatility. So let's use some measured moves back here. Yeah, right about here at 28.56. Yeah, I think that's a good target. Let's see what our stop loss needs to be. Kind of eyeballing this level. Yeah. 23 is the stop. All right. Whoops. Get that like that. Okay, cool. That's the upside. Downside, yeah, pretty clearly. We lose 2169 level. It could pull back quite a bit further. Might be a little off with this 2003 level. Let's see. Yeah. You know what? It really could be. Yeah, let's move that up a little bit, actually. Yeah, that looks good. For first target, second target. Yeah, this up a little bit. I'm not sure where my head was at on a couple of these levels. I mean, they're not way off, but they're not as precise as I would normally like to see them, or how I would normally draw them. Third target. Okay, cool. It's pretty solid looking plans. Let's get this to the hourly. What's up, everybody who's joined? If you guys have any ticker requests or questions, go ahead, drop those in the live stream chat here in this channel. Little word bubble icon, top right hand corner. If you don't already have it open, feel free to drop any questions or ticker requests that you want me to take a look at and or do a plan for before we wrap this up this morning. All right, let's get this locked into our trade plan. Whoops. And share. Let's good. Let's clean up this chart real quick. There we go. Comes your USAR live stream plan. And get this over the other chat. Template. Set our alerts. All right, so let's talk through this one last time. What are we looking for here on USAR? We're looking for a break over 2402. That should bring price targets at 2541, 2680, and 2856 with a stop loss average down at 23 flat. To the downside, we're looking for a break below 2169. That should bring price targets at 2020, 1912, and 1781 with a stop loss average down shared with that upside trade plan at 23 flat. Those are your USAR trade plans. Let's go. Let's take a look at LCRX. La Croix. Wait, no. You said LCRX, right? LCRX. Is that right? Nah, that's not right. Oh, yeah, I was going to say that didn't sound right. There we go. Apparently, I looked at this chart at some point and threw a bunch of random lines on it. At least that what it looks like now. Knowing what I know now. That's what it looks like. Let's hide that for now. All right, we'll try to take a look at NVO and PLTR for you all. Just a moment. RCX, yeah, it's all-time high status, so let's check for a few supports here, if we can even find any this zoomed out. Probably not going to find a ton here. That might be the only one. Let's see. That's actually a pretty decent one. I think there's something close to this level, but not clear support and resistance, at least not yet. All right. Let's see what we can find at this little. Oh, yeah, we right on it, actually. I even say you can move it down just a little bit. Yeah, right about there. Just a little higher on this level. Yeah, right there. That's a good one. Interesting rounded top off this level, but nothing confirmed there yet. a little bit of a tricky one to see support and resistance on, but that's okay. I like a challenge. That's a little tiny gap to fill to the downside still. Doesn't take it down very far once it gets in. This is the level that I was a little bit torn by. Let's say it's, yeah, sitting right about here. Nice double bottom there, but not convinced on where that support and resistance is yet. Then we've got our current extended hours all-time high. All right. Let's see if we can't fill in some of these blanks and start to see where we need to set this trade plan up at. Move for me just a little bit. Right about there. Pretty decent. Lots of support. Interesting double top there. All right, I think we're pretty. Oh, there's another gap to fill down to here too. Be mindful of. All right, I think we're good on support and resistance. Now the real question becomes, we do need to think about having some fib extensions on this because we're very close to all-time highs. Let's run off of this right here. Yeah, I think it does. Okay, well, then let's break out our trend-based fib extensions. Watch this come down for a nice confluence. Right about. Move just a little bit for me. There we go. Right about there. It's almost spot on. So that would give us these potential untested price targets. All right, so where does this give us a good? All right, yeah, let's take a shot at this. Take that break for a retest of all-time high. That gets us out for some profit and moving up our stops at that major all-time high resistance. Over that, we start looking at fib extensions. We'll make this small. I'm actually going to leave it right there. There's kind of a little area of support that I could see showing up anywhere in this range. 242.93 to 242.39. All right, yeah, let's leave that set right there. All right, that gives us good risk reward for the upside. Also with a pretty clear shelf that if we lose it, could open up some downside room. So let's lock that in. 2 price targets right here. This could be just a little bit higher. What's up, Serge? Good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. Let's catch this double bottom as PT2, PT3. This could wind up being right about here. Also with that 333 coming up, eventually that'll give us some confluence near that level. All right, cool. All right, gives us our plan. Let's lock it in. What's up, Neo? Good morning to you. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Glad to see you here. Oops, that's not the number we're looking for. 2. Dang it. And 1 share. Stop loss average down. All right. So let's clean this up real quick. There we go. Let's hide this too for now. There we go. Less noise is better. All right, here comes your LRCX live stream plan. It's over in the elite chat. Here, save our template. Set our alerts. All right. So what are we looking for here on LRCX? We're looking for it to break over 248.20. That should open up upside to 256.91, 266.07, and 273.52 with a stop loss average down at 242.92. To the downside, we're looking for a break below 237.31. That should bring targets at 232, 227.31, and 222.51 with a stop loss average down at 242.92. Be very careful on this downside trade plan. Risk reward is definitely like barely below the line of where I would want it to be. I mean, essentially, if we round it off, it's about 1-to-1, but that is the bare minimum risk reward we want on a trade. So I would say any positions you take to the downside, make sure you keep them on the smaller side. That would be my advice. All right, so what do we have? Yeah, tons of meat on the bone to the upside for sure. All right, let's see. We got that. We did that. NVO. Let's take a look at NVO. That's Novo Nordisk. Yeah, that's what I thought. Breaking below the 333 and rejecting it. Overall, indicator wise, looking a bit bearish, at least here on the hourly. We'll take a look. A few different time frames here. Bounced out of that buy zone to fill that gap. It's kind of an interesting level right there too, just below it. just want to see price action for a minute. I don't think I've ever. I have. Hang on. I was gonna say I don't think I've ever really charted NBO, but take that back. I have. Yeah, pretty close to where I had my existing level at. Yeah, that was probably torn between those two levels because I could really make a case for either of them. I think it is a little bit lower, actually. Sometimes those fresh eyes see things a little bit better. Nice break out of that downtrend. This is our last trade plan we did on it down here. Looks like we did it back on December 2nd. Broke out and just smashed through price targets from there. Interesting. Support right about here. Maybe even just a little bit lower to right about there. Yeah. That's a pretty good daily level. I don't know if it's going to be a price target or not, but we'll want to keep our eyes on that. All right. All right, NVO, let's start to get this plan in place. So yeah, below that 333 and rejecting it currently. Looks like it kind of wants to break to the downside to me. That was catching the 200 there. It's no longer a factor. All right, let's take a shot at this move playing out. And this level is probably just the tiniest bit higher. Yeah, right there. Looking at both support and then kind of got stuck under it as resistance back there. So I get this our first target. Really parabolic move through this range, so bit of a fair value gap to the downside. Close. There is a level sitting right about here that we would want to have as a second price target. Stop loss average down right here. All right, upside. Where does that open up? Yeah, I give this upside some time, and honestly, I'm on this one specifically, I'm leaning a little bit toward downside continuation. We'll get better confirmation if that 58.18 level gives way. There is a level up here. Yeah, about there. I want to be taking some profits at. Small little gap to fill, but it is there. Takes us up to 62.74, and I think we're looking for 64.32 over that. So opens up some more upside room over that PT2. All right, cool. Let's lock it in. Actually, let me do this real quick while I'm here. All right. This, show that. Oh, yeah, they do have earnings tomorrow pre-market, so be very mindful of that. I would not recommend swinging really anything. See if we can catch some ER momentum, either some of the lead up, whether that's to the upside or the downside, remains to be seen, but certainly something I'd be watching for as we head into that earnings report. And then post earnings, we can look at some of these levels as potential supports to catch reversals or resistances to catch rejections post earnings report, but be extremely careful swinging anything through any earnings report with options unless you have a very good strategy in place, typically going to involve some kind of a spread or something. But yeah, earnings reports are pure lottery tickets. All right, so here comes your MVO live stream plan. Let's get this over in the elite channel real quick. Better. All right. Copy that link. Let's get this into there. Let's lock in our template. All right, cool. Let's talk about this real quick. What are we looking for here on NVO? We're looking for a break below 58.18. That could bring downside targets to 56.37, 55.09, and 53.41 with a stop loss average down at 59.33. To the upside, we're looking for a break over 60.89. That should bring targets at 61 to 86, 62.74, and 64. 32 with a stop loss average down at 60.12. Again, reminder, earnings pre-market tomorrow. So make sure if you're not willing to totally risk it for the biscuit, that you have scaled out your contracts before close today. Let me see if I can't take a quick look at these other requests that we got. PLTR and Oracle. PLTR gapping up on earnings, but running right into these moving averages. That said, long signal, flipping the flag bullish, all that good stuff. 2 hour looks pretty good, but 200 dipping below the 333 could bring some resistance down on this move to the upside. I thought I had some levels on this. Let me clean this up real quick. There we go. Yeah, I'd say your real key level, if this is going to continue higher, is going to be around 170.95 potato pot. Over that, I think it does have a chance to push up to 176.44. I'd keep my stops. Yeah, somewhere around 166.22. So over 170.95. Could make a move up to 176.44. Stops around 166.22. Over 176.44, 181.35, and then 187. Does have a gap to fill to the downside. It could fill that gap and then bounce that gap. Looks like it fills right around 158.36. So just a quick take on it. Overall, looks like it's trying to flip things back to the bullish side there on PLTR. And then this is made with, let's take a look at Oracle. I'll give you a quick read on that. Looks like it's trying to double bottom here off this 156.13 level. Call it 156. So Oracle trying to double bottom off 156, but has some resistance right around this 163.19. Let's see. That's what I was looking at. Yeah, pretty close to it. So trying to hold that double bottom, 163.19 could act as resistance. Over that, I think it makes a decent move to the upside. Probably close to this 170.35 level. So just some quick levels, quick read for it on you. Overall, it's got a lot of issues overhead though, so may struggle to push for upside. All right, we are 10 minutes out from market open. I do need to get the daily SPY plan put together and published for the group. So with that, I think we're going to close out today's session. We will be back Thursday morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please come back, join us then. Until that time comes, as we always say here on Chart Talk Live, plan your trades and trade your plans. Remember, we're looking for profits, not perfection. So keep your wins big. Keep your losses small. Go out there and get some green. I will see you all in the chats, and I will see you back here Thursday morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, take care. Have a fantastic day, everybody.